Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Life of Love. I'm Adam,
I'm Steph.
and we are still in love.
Sure.
And not on a marriage contract, which is actually the topic of today's.
Yes.
Should love and marriage have an end date or a prescribed end date that we can renew? That's kind of what we're planning to talk about today. There's just something that came across on social media about this concept. And now we've talked about this before a little bit about the prenup.
Mm-hmm.
And should every marriage have a prenup? And I brought up the point that, it's just as simple as, if something does happen, you already have it prescribed. Like, I know what I'm coming in with. I know what you're coming in with, or if we're coming in with nothing, or we're just going jointly together.
Yeah.
You can predetermine things like bank accounts and all of that, like who's going to work, if we have kids, is someone going to be a stay-at-home mom, where are we going to live, where are we going to move to, stuff like that can kind of already be predetermined. But this thing that we're going to talk about today is basically having a marriage contract, so a predetermined set time period where if you don't renew, just like a sports contract, so it's based off of this. So there's a comedian there that talked about this on TikTok and some other interviews, kind of joking around about this, but this is something that has been brought up before in other countries and other areas and in other discussions about if there should be a finite end date, that, hey, everything's going good, cool, let's renew it for another 5-10 years, or, hey, things are horrible, let's end it now. And of course, you'd have that prenup already in place. So just give us a little bit of information here on that.
So what is a 4-year marriage contract? So your marriage is treated like a renewable agreement. Every 4 years, both partners must opt in to renew. If it's not renewed, the marriage ends without the traditional divorce mess. It is inspired by the idea of sports contracts or software subscriptions. Mexico City once proposed a 2-year renewable license. It did not pass, but it stirred debate. The trending topic on social media is for millennials and Gen Z. They're asking, is forever still realistic?
Let's look at that. We've talked about this on things like commitment and all that, and the generations. I think that the millennials and the kids now are seeing that 50% plus of their parents are divorced. So they're now looking at that like, holy crap, like, look at the mess my parents are going through.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with that. Whereas our generation, I think more people in our generation parents stayed together. Like, I only know of a couple. Like, I only remember like hanging out with like one or two kids whose parents weren't divorced, and like none of our aunts and uncles really were like that. Even like a lot of our cousins and stuff have been in long-term relationships, and all our close friends and stuff that we grew up with have been in long-term relationships as well. So I think it's definitely, I think with that mindset of those kids.
I agree. Yeah, these kids are obviously they have different viewpoints, clearly. It could be their background, like what they've dealt with in their childhood or upbringing, and they see that and go like, why would I even get myself into that? And
you think about the throwaway society as well, that
it's easy to throw things away. Like, if it doesn't work, it's broken, in the garbage.
New shiny object, new iPhone every year. My computer's broken, my TV breaks every year. Get a new one.
Yeah.
So when people start treating everything in their life that way, when it comes then to trying to do a true commitment that you need to do,
they struggle. It's a struggle.
Yeah, and you think about any commitment you do have, like a cell phone, or like you mentioned, like a subscription plan, or you see all your sports stars. Even sports stars, for instance, used to have franchise players, and how many people are jumping around from team to team, so you don't even have commitment in that sense as well.
Yeah, crazy. All right, moving on. Why people love or hate this idea. So pros, it's built-in check-ins, forced communication and reflection. It makes people more intentional in their relationships. It could reduce toxic relationships and drawn out divorces. The cons, it undermines long-term commitment, may make people less likely to work through tough times, can feel transactional, like a job performance review. So would we work?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, okay, so we've got 6 months to go. Does each person give a, here's my report card from you.
Yeah,
You need a couple needs improvements and a couple satisfactories and one good.
Yeah, listening to these pros and cons, would we work harder at our relationship if we knew it had an end date?
I think if obviously if things are going good, of course you would, right? Like I'm thinking, shoot, but it's so different than when you think about like the sports stars. They do the same thing. They'll go a couple years where it'll be a lull, and then when it's a contract year, all of a sudden you know that hockey player, that baseball player is all of a sudden getting more points.
I think I need to get across that like sports contracts. Well,
I know, but these
contracts are different than like a whole relationship.
This is how it's basically proposed to do. Like, how do you? You have to go. Ooh, year 1 was pretty good. 2 and 3 weren't that good. Year 4 has actually been pretty good. So
I know, but the whole idea.
How many ups and downs are you gonna?
The whole idea of this is, I can tell you. I can bet you know how I feel about this.
It would be very interesting to actually ask a couple like 20-year-olds this question and be like, "How do you think of this?" Definitely, if you're a 20-year-old and you're listening to this, or you got a 20-year-old,
ask them, right?
Ask them and see if that's obviously some of the pros. Yeah, obviously, if you're in a loveless relationship that's not going anywhere, or there's issues.
I don't think these pros are pros, though.
There's a way out. Now, we just discussed before this, like, well, what if you went out at 3 years, right? So you'd have to have those different clauses, like at 3 years to 70-30 split.
Yeah.
Like 3 years, 6 months.
That makes it so transactional. That's so, I don't know. Would that bring us closer or cause more anxiety? Anxiety for me, because, for me, the idea of marriage was never, like, divorce was never, ever, ever on my mind, ever at any point of the relationship here. Even when we were dating and we were, like, engaged and moving on to the next step of our lives, the idea of divorce never, ever, ever crossed my mind. So this is something that would be so foreign to me. So I would have way more anxiety because I would be like, okay, is he lying to me? Does he really want to be in this relationship? Is he going to blindside me at 4 years and say he doesn't want this anymore? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so when we were doing research for this, there was actually a guy talking about how like marriage isn't supposed to be transactional or contractual.
Yeah,
it's a covenant between each other, right? So it's a promise to be faithful and loyal and respectful, which aren't necessarily points that people strive for these days, or it's not even in their mind. Everything's just so transactional in our relationship, which we just talked about earlier here, that
in our daily life,
people don't they're not living that way regularly, where we used to be, and everyone's looking out for each other. Now everyone's looking out for themselves.
Yeah,
so I can see how this becomes something people think about.
This is one crazy topic. All right, so moving on. Let's see what the experts say. For legal, the legal category, the prenup/marriage contracts are legal in Canada, but not renewable marriage licenses. This would require major legal reform to introduce expiration dates. Therapists/psychologists. Many support regular relationship reviews, yearly check-ins, goals, etc. Encourage open dialogue and prevents emotional distance. This concept might just formalize something we should already be doing.
Yeah, definitely. We talked about, I think it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, about the whole spring renewals, refresh
Yeah.
your relationship. Yeah, just those cornerstone things. Whether it's springtime. Just set it up. Valentine's Day is a good reminder. Anniversaries, birthdays, those are
Yeah.
all little check-ins to go like, how is everything going right now in our relationship?
And that needs to come from both
for
parties.
sure.
Like, the woman shouldn't always be like, hey, you're slacking in this department. It should be open, effective communication. But like these whole relationship reviews, like, people should be doing that anyways. Like, if you're having issues in your relationship, you should definitely be having that open conversation. Yeah, it may suck, it may be difficult, but it's better outside than inside. But yeah. Moving on. So let's give our final thoughts on this.
So there was what was a lady? I think she was a psychotherapist. So it's just like an old couple talking when we were looking at this, and they were asking them this question. So they said, basically reiterated some of the stuff we already talked about making sure like the person that you're with should be someone that you like to be around. And I think a lot of times in relationships that people kind of rush things nowadays. That is another problem. Like, you think about the way, like, we did it. For instance, we dated for years, got engaged, got married, bought a house, had kids, and away we go. There's a lot of people that start dating, have a kid, then move into each together.
Not saying that there's anything wrong with that.
There's if you're not taking that time to discuss these things, like you said, like, even if you had that relationship contract when you first began, like say you're a month or two into your relationship and you're like, what if we had kids? What would we do if we had kids? Where would we live? What's your plans for the future? So at least if people aren't having these discussions early on, then when that stuff happens, then it's just a big shock, and then you're rushing, and all of a sudden, that's you can have problems in your relationship when you don't have that open communication, you don't have those discussions and know what's going on. Obviously, that's based off of our relationship and stuff that we are that we have lived through and seen happen. But just that constant communication, knowing where things are heading.
Yeah.
So that you don't need to have that, like, hey, you know what? There's probably lots of people out there that, hey, for many different reasons, tax purposes, all this stuff, having a marriage might be a good idea. So, hey, maybe if you're a rich guy or a rich lady and you just want to have some fun for a couple years and take advantage of some tax breaks. And
hey, man, I wouldn't doubt that it already happens. But so your final thought, would you sign one? Why or why not?
No, I mean, in that sense, no. Now, I would sign an agreement. We kind of did this because we had to do that marriage prep course to get married in a church, where we kind of did sign something, like, did this, like, a commitment to each other. We kind of did, where it's like, and we went through all these questions. So it's actually kind of funny that this comes up, but these are things that we did in our marriage prep course, which all people, I think, should really go through something like that. Like, what's your plans for kids?
It just puts everything out on the table that you wouldn't normally think of.
And so, some stuff maybe you did talk about, but you didn't. Like, we never talked about, well, I mean, we kind of had a plan. We had bought a house or whatever, put a down payment on a new build early on, but we had kind of had that plan. But for some people, if you got two houses, who's going to live where? Who's going to, maybe you're in one part of the town, you're part of the other. Where do you want your kids to go to school? Who are you close to? Do you want to be close to your parents? You got friends nearby that can watch your kids? Like, there's all these questions that a lot of people don't. So maybe, I mean, yes, obviously this is like a crazy concept, but hey, maybe it's going to work for some people.
I agree that this would work for some people.
But in the grand scheme of things, I think we need to have those discussions, and whether it is some sort of prenup or discussions that you have put down so that, hey, we discussed this, and, you can't turn your back on it. I'm sure there's lots of relationships out there where you get married and all of a sudden the one partner goes, yeah, by the way, I don't want to move. It's like, hey, whoa, we talked about this. You know, we're going to move by my parents or whatever. And all of a sudden now you're married and now it turns into a messy divorce because you didn't have those discussions ahead of time.
Yeah. I'm assuming you know how I feel about this. The idea of this is ridiculous to me. Yeah. I see this as no difference than a prenup. This is just like a glorified prenup in a sense, but you're basically, the idea is it gives people a way out at year 4. And that is my issue.
Well, I know how many people are just counting down like, ooh, can't wait. Yeah. How many people are going to start cheating on their spouse early, and that just creates all these extra issues.
I agree.
If you just communicate and have these proper conversations, if there's issues, address them and go, hey, you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't work out. People change, and you never know, right? Someone gets a different job offer and they want to move out of town or something. There's so many different options and things that could happen, and all of a sudden, like the one partner's just like, I can't move. So, and then in those cases, there is. Yeah,
but you can have that in any sort of relationship. But I think that I don't know the difference between this and a prenup, right? Like the only difference is there's an expiration date.
That's it. Yeah.
And
the prenup,
it's like, why even have that? The prenup is there to protect you, right?
It's like when people say, well, why do you need a prenup? Are you planning to get divorced? This thing is literally
like you're going to get divorced.
We are planning to get divorced.
For obvious reasons, I don't see a difference between this and a prenup other than the expiration date.
I wonder also if you had like an older couple, let's say people who are on like their second marriage, maybe they're in their 50s or their 60s, like what their thoughts are on this as well. Because let's say they had a 20-year marriage and maybe they got divorced or lost their partner, for health reasons, or they passed away, and they joined up with it. I wonder what some of the different age groups of people would think about this. Like I said, probably like the young 20s are probably I'd do that, and us more middle-aged people, 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe more inclined to say, I love my relationship. But then I wonder.
Yeah.
So if anyone,
I'd be curious. I don't. I feel like marriages shouldn't have a contract. Like if you are toying with the idea of getting into a marriage, put the effort into.
If that's your thought process, then why even get married?
Exactly.
Right? There's so many
just
people,
stay common law.
So many people we know that are just common law, never got married.
Yeah.
And they live out, and that just works perfectly. And I've heard other people say that too, where like they're still like basically married to their former partner, but it's just like as soon as they were married, it's like a mental shift just happened in both of them. Where like all of a sudden they're like, well, where are you going? Oh, you can't go out with your friends anymore. And then once they split up, they're like, it's just like they just felt like locked, like they had to do something. So obviously it depends on what relationships they saw and how they grew up and what they saw. But definitely an interesting topic, and I mean worth discussing, right? It makes you think about,
does make you think. I'm telling you,
your own relationship, and
so those are my feelings on it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just gonna ask the audience: would you consider a 4-year marriage contract? Does forever feel outdated, or is it still the goal?
Yeah. Let us know in the comments. Yeah. Hit us up, send us messages. Again, if you guys are listening, it's your first time listening, thanks for checking us out and making all the way through this episode. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and we put out daily clips on YouTube as well. So if you just want little snippets and check us out, you can do that on there as well.
Yeah.
But with that, we'll say see you next week.
Bye.